First off, welcome guys to the Python workshop. I'm glad everyone could be here and I'm glad everyone wants to learn Python. I think it's a great language and hopefully you guys can get the hang of it, at least of the basics of Python through this workshop. And before we start, let me introduce myself. My name is Lazo Hurtado. I'm graduating in 2023. I am currently the Vice President of DSC FIU, a new club in FIU. Highly recommend you guys to join that. It's going to be a QR code to apply at the end. So stick around. I'm a sophomore right now at FIU. I'm studying computer science, and I mainly do some backend work with Python, Golang, and I'm starting to pick up Node.js. And then here we have today's agenda. And we have the overview, we have the output, variables, functions, condition, loops, and data structures. This is going to be all we're going to cover. We're going to do some pretty simple stuff and hopefully get the hang of it. And then at the end, I am going to share some resources so you guys can dive a little bit deeper into Python. So let's get into the overview. First, I want to talk about what Python is. Python is a high-level programming language designed to be easy to read and simple to implement. Straight on a dot, extremely simple to read, you guys will see. And then Python also supports modules and packages, which encourages programs modularity and code reuse. Python can be used to create a wide range of applications like artificial intelligence, video games, backend servers, web scraping, and data science, and much, much more, guys. You can download Python at the main Python website, which is python.org. And then you go to /downloads to see the different type of downloads you guys can use. Someone's acting sus. That's funny. All right, and now let's get into what Anaconda is. Anaconda is a data science toolkit with over 20 million users worldwide. Anaconda makes it easy to work with Python or R data science and machine learning modules on a single machine. Anaconda also supports scikit-learn, TensorFlow, PyTorch, Matplotlib, and much more. So if you're working with data science, this is extremely useful and important. And then you can learn more about Anaconda at Anaconda's main website, which is anaconda.com. Now let's get into Jupyter, which is what we'll be using for today's workshop. It's a Jupyter Notebook. It's an open source web application that allows you to create and share documents that contains live code, equations, visualizations, and narrative text. The uses include data cleaning and transformation, numerical simulation, statistical modeling, data visualization, machine learning, and much more. So this is also something that's extremely powerful and really and heavily used in the field. All right, thank you for joining. I'm glad. If you guys want to learn more about Jupyter Notebook, jupyter.org, and then go down that rabbit hole. All right, great. So now let's get into output and how we're going to print data to the screen using Python. Thank you, Azar. All right, so right before we get into this, I just want to explain a couple of things. This is how we're going to give most of the workshop. It's going to be small sentences, and then it would have photos of the code. Why am I doing this? I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for you guys to learn and get the hang of Python. There might be some cases where I do jump on Jupyter notebooks and actually live code some stuff just to show you guys some things. But most of it is going to be like this, like I said, to keep it simple and not to scare you guys at all. All right, so now let's get into the print method. Actually, wait, I didn't go over this. Python uses a print function to output data to the screen. The print function takes any type of object, converts it to a string, and then outputs the data to the screen. So as you see right here, yeah, you guys can see my mouse, perfect. We're passing to the print function, hello world, and then it displays that. But we could also pass it, like I said, it takes any type of object, so we could pass a string, an integer, a float, or an array. We're gonna get into these type of data structures later on, so you stick with me. But as you can see, it takes different type of data structures and prints it to the screen. Difference between pip and Anaconda. With pip is basically downloading packages or modules, and then Anaconda is a collection of different toolkits. Like it has Jupyter, Matplotlib, and like how I went over in the beginning. Exactly, Daniel. All right, now let's get into the print method. The print method also accepts other arguments. So the print has a syntax. It takes objects, and then it has a separate SAP argument, and end, a file, and flush. Now the sep variable, standing for separator, is by default a space value. So I can see as you can see by here, is by default space. Changing this to an underscore will result in our data being separated by underscores. So here we're passing it two strings, and if we didn't include this separator right here at the end, it will just say hello space world, because that's the default. The default is a space. But since we change it to an underscore, it changes to hello underscore world. So it's something pretty cool to keep in mind. And that was it. That was the output. Outputting things in Python is that simple, just using the print function. Super easy. So now let's get into the variables. First, let's go over strings. So strings in Python could be declared using either double quotations or single quotations. As you can see right here, we can create a variable, a string variable, saying hello with double quotes, and we can print that. If we were to do it with single quotes as well, it wouldn't give us an error, unlike some other programming languages. And if you print it, it works fine. I'll put it in Python over any other language, yes, because it's that easy. All right, so now we learned how to declare a variable for strings. Super easy as well. Strings can also be concatenated by adding two strings together. For example, we can get s1, which is hello, is a variable storing hello, and then plus s2. What that gives us is hello world, and then when we print it, we get it right here. That's our answer. Keep in mind, I had to include a space at the end of the s1 variable, because if not, when we concatenate those two together, it will be smushed. It will say hello world with no space in between. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Now, Python also includes string formatting by calling the format on a string variable. So for example, here we have a variable holding a string saying hello, and then for it to be able to format, you need to have curly braces. So curly braces 0, today is curly braces 1. If you were to call format on the format method on that variable, and then pass it strings, it inputs it. So it's going to take Lazaro and it's going to input it into 0, and then it's going to take Sunny and input that into 1. And then when we print that, it's going to give us hello Lazaro, today is sunny. So why is this 0 and why is this 1? And why do we pass this first and then this one second? Well, the first argument is always going to go to the curly braces with a 0. And then the second one is going to go to a 1 with the first. If I were to have a third argument here, I would have to do curly braces 2 inside the curly braces, and then that third string will go inside of there. If you don't call format at all, it is just going to call that, because it has nothing to pass in. So yes, it's just going to print that. Now, another way of doing it is if you could put an actual word inside the curly braces. And then when you're calling .format, you can say that word you put inside the curly braces equals to whatever string you want. So as you can see right here, we have a name inside the curly braces. And then when I'm doing .format, I'm making sure that I use name is equal to Lazaro. So it's going to take this Lazaro and put it wherever name is, which is right here. And does the exact same thing with the verb. And that's why we get hello there, Lazaro, you are tall. Oh God, I wouldn't want to print that, Jonathan. All right, so now let's talk about something really, really cool. So from Python 3.6 and above, formatting could also be done using F strings. This is one of the easiest ways to format a string. So we do F and then whatever string we have, and inside the curly braces, we're actually referencing a variable, a string variable. So I can see right here, I created a variable called name and a variable called verb. And then this is taking name, the actual variable, and then putting it into the string already. That's why when we print this, we get hello there, Lazaro, you are tall, because it's getting these variables. This is one of the format getting nice. This is why it's one of the easiest way to format strings, and I always use this, and I recommend you guys to use it as well. Okay, now let's talk about some built-in methods for strings. We have lower, upper, and title. So if we were to get a string variable and call on that variable .lower, we get that string and put it all to lowercase. So as you can see here, ShellHacks, it's a very lowercase. So when we call .lower, we see no change. But for dot upper, it takes this whole string and makes every single character uppercase. And that's why we get ShellHacks with all the characters uppercase. Now, what does title do? Well, title only uppercases the first character in that string or in that word. And that's why we get ShellHacks with the capital S. Other data types can also be converted to string types using the str function. Let's go over an example. Here we have number or num, which is equal to 7. 7 is an integer. So when we print out num and we print out the type of num, we get 7 and the type is an int, an integer. If we were to turn this into a string, we get the type is equals to a string. And we can do this by using the conversion of the string function. Title gang, yeah. So our gangs out there. All right, so that was strings, pretty simple, guys. Now let's get into integers and floats. So a integer in Python is just a whole number, easy as that. Number is equal to 7, no decimals, just a straight up number. F string gang. You guys are funny. So if we would print num, we get 7. Integers goes to be added together using z is equal to x plus y or z plus equals x. Here we have a couple of examples. Num is equal to 2, num2 is equal to 5, and then num3 is equal to num plus num2. And this will give us a result of 5 plus 2, which is of course 7. Another way of doing this, a little shorthand, is taking num, which is 5, and then adding whatever we want to it. So here I added 8 to it by using plus equals 8. And then that's why we get 13, because 8 plus 5 is 13. Something I do want to point out, guys, is if you're using x++, this will give you an error. Unlike some other programming languages, Python does not support this. So let's say we have a num variable, which is equal to the integer 5. If we were to do num plus plus, basically trying to increment it by 1, it would not work and will give us a syntax error. And that's why we get this error right here. So this is supported in some other languages, but Python does not support it. Great, so that was integers. Now let's talk about floats. A float in Python is just a decimal number, and it supports the exact same math operations as an integer. Here we have num equal to 7.4, and if we were to print it, we get 7.4, and that right there is a float. You're right, Jose, it does not, you're right. Now some other operations like multiplication and division is also supported. We have here num1 is equal to 2, and then num2 is equal to 5. We can simply multiply this by using the asterisk, and we can also divide using a forward slash. Keep in mind, using a forward slash would turn it into a float, but I'm going to show you guys something pretty cool later on. And what's cool is floor division. So floor division is supported in Python, and it basically floors any float and converts it into an integer. For example, if we take 16 and 5 and divide it, just using one forward slash, so just regular division, we get 3.2. But if we use floor division, so 2 forward slash, 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 we get 3. Why? Because it pushes it down and it makes an integer. It rounds it down pretty much. So that's why it's called floor division. Yeah, this is not, Python is really simple. So I'm glad you guys agree. Now let's go over the module operator. The module operator is pretty much, it returns the remainder in a division. How many times can 4 go into 15? 3 times. 4, 8, and then 12. 4 goes into 15 3 times because 4 times 3 is 12. What's the remainder? 3. That's why we use the modulo operator of 15 modulo 4. We get the answer of 3. Python also has a built-in operator for calculating powers. So instead of having to import the math module, you can just use 2 asterisks and it takes it to the power. For example, if we were to take 5 to the power of 3, we could just do num asterisk asterisk power. And that gives us power to the power of 3 is 125, which makes sense. Oh, no, no, no. I went all the way to the end. Where was I? Okay, here we were. All right, let's continue. Okay. Also, when possible, integer conversion could also be used on floats and strings. And I say when possible because you cannot convert a data structure like an array to int. So let's take this float, 19.5. We can convert this to an integer using the int function. And then before we convert it into an int, it's 19.5. But after, it turns into 19 because it goes from float to integer using int. We could also use this on strings, which is really cool. Let's say we have a string that's the number 17. We can convert that using the int function. So as you can see right here, num underscore string is equal to string 17. If we were to print the type of that, we get string. But after using the int function, the type of that becomes into an integer. You're right, it's not needed yet. Import. It was importing everything in Java. Yeah, importing everything in Java is really painful. Yeah, Python does already know. Yeah. You guys are getting the hang of it. Yeah. All right, now let's talk about float conversion. So similar like ints, you can also convert things to float. Let's say I have the integer 7. If I were to call float on it, it will become 7.0. Simple as that. All of this is super simple. If you guys have any questions, just let me know. All right, so that was it for integers and floats. Now let's get into Booleans. So a Boolean variable in Python are either true or false. So happy is equal to true. When we print it, we get true. Tired is equal to false. When we print it, is equal to false. This will eventually turn true. This hackathon is gonna take a lot out of us guys. Okay, now let's get into setting a Boolean variable to true or false without a cap. So something I want to point out is if you try to set a Boolean value without the capital T or F, it will give you an error because unlike other programming languages, it does not support that. The T or F does have to be capital. Are they automatically 0 or 1, or is this true or is it strictly true or false? What exactly are we talking about? Can you set true to false? Okay, that's gonna be later on. Just give me 1 second. I know what you guys are talking about. So also variables can be given a Boolean value by comparing two values. If 5 is greater than 10, that turns out to be false. So this compare variable is false. The same thing with this string. It's not an empty string. So since this string does not equal an empty string, the value is false. Now, this is what I think you guys were talking about. Using not before a false Boolean value will result in true, where this is basically equivalent to the exclamation point false in some other programming languages like JavaScript. So if you have a variable that's set to false and you use not hungry, it will print true. So that's how you can turn a false value into a true value. Yeah. Crying in Java. All right, so now let's get into functions. I'm going a little bit slow here, so I'm gonna have to pick it up. Yes, you guys will have access to everything right after. I will make sure I link everything to you guys. So a function in Python is declared using the def keyword and called using the function name in a pair of parentheses. So as you see right here, we have a function called greet, and then we can call that function by just calling greet, then the parentheses, and then in this result variable, we get what it returned, which it returned welcome everyone. That's why when we print result, we get welcome everyone. None in Python is a gift from God. All right. Variables can also be passed into functions. So we can create a function, and inside the parentheses, we can pass it an argument that it expects to be given. So when we call that function, we pass in that argument that we want. Here I'm passing 3, and then it's going to return 3 times 3, and then and it's going to store that in the num underscore squared variable. And when we print it, we get 9. When do I get to see snakes? I didn't put any snakes photos, man. I'm sorry. All right, let's carry on. So functions can also have a default variable. If no specific variable is passed to that argument, then it uses the default value. So here we have a method with a default value for the second argument. So when I call add 12, I add the 12 becomes num1, but num2 is still equal to 3. That's why when I print the first number, we get 12, and when I print the second number, we get 3, because 3 is that default value for this variable. But if I were to call add and then pass in 2 arguments or 2 variables to the method, to the function, I'm sorry, uh, it takes the 8 now replaces this 3. That's why the first number is now 6, which is the first one I passed. And the second number is 8, because the 8 overwrote this default value. Now let's talk about scopes. So the scope of variables declared inside a function is local and accessible only to that function. For example, here in greet, we have last underscore name is equal to doe. But when we call by, we're trying to access that last name and we get an error because we don't have access to last underscore name. This is only accessible inside the greet function and only inside of that function. So that's why it throws the name error right here in the bottom. So this is something to keep in mind as well. All right, sweet. Can you skip the first default and change second default? Yeah. So Zachary pretty much got it, yeah. Something, actually, let me show you guys something. You can see this, right? Okay, sweet. Here, let me put it right here, insert below. Let's say I want to create the exact same method, but this time I want the default. So this is something to keep in mind. I want the default value to be in the front and then the required argument in the second. If I were to create this, it's going to give me an error. Why does it give me that error? It's because if you have a default argument, all default arguments needs to be at the end. That's the only way that it makes sense. Because if not, then how would it know which one you want to override it? Here you're making this one required and you're making this one optional. So this 12 is going over here, but this required one never got past anything. And since it's required, it throws an error. So something to keep in mind is if you have a default variable or argument, make sure it's at the end for it to run smooth. Okay. Whoa. Name num1 is not defined. Oh. Okay, there we go. There we go. So if it's not at the end, it's going to throw an error. Perfect. All right, let's go back to the slide. I am going a little bit slow though, guys. And then, okay, we went over the scope and now we're on to classes. Sweet. So classes in Python are declared using the class keyword. Functions inside a Python class are called methods. So from now, when you see the def inside a class, it switches from a function to a method. And all methods require the self argument. So most Python classes include a __init___ method, which acts as a constructor. Now, what's a constructor is pretty much the first method that gets hit. So as soon as you create this class, that method will be triggered. So as you can see right here, we're calling triangle. We're passing it 3 and 4. Where is that 3 and 4 going? Where is going to the _init___ method. Sweet. Okay. And now in the constructor, the past variables are added to the instance of the class using self. So that's why we use self. Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you, Daniela. All right. So this 3 is going to be added to the instance of the class using self. So that's why we call self.base equals base. If we were not to do this, then later on in another method like area, we cannot access base because we never made that a part of the class itself. So that's why we use self.base and then self.height is equal to height to make sure we store that variables in the class. Now, a method inside a class could also be called by calling the method on the class or class variable. So as you can see right here, I instantiated the triangle class, but now I'm also calling the method area by using triangle.area parentheses. So this right here is the class itself. This variable triangle is the class itself. And then triangle.area is this method specifically, is going to run this method specifically. What? Really? Here, let me. Sorry about this, guys. Is that a little bit better? Can you guys see that? Oh, so it's like a method has inner methods, and you can call those methods through the period. Yeah, so it's like a class has inner methods, and you can call those methods through the period. Okay, you guys got it by the magnifying glass. Okay, sweet, 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 sweet. Thank God, because I don't think there was another way for me to really increase the font. Okay, unless I can zoom in. No, I can't. Okay, yeah. So, okay, let's continue. Classes can also be extended by referencing the parent class when declaring a new class. So here we have the class square, and then we have another class called cube. But cube is extending square. That's why we pass it in the parentheses. And what does this mean? Oh, that does not help at all. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, I'm sorry, it doesn't work. You guys will have access to this later on. Yeah, maybe if you guys try clicking on it, we can see well. Okay, okay, all right, sweet. Just a little low resolution. Oh, I'm sorry about that. It looks fine. Okay, okay. So let me carry on. And we can extend it by passing the other class inside the parentheses. So here, cube is an extension of square. So methods in the parent class could then be called using the super function. So since we're extending square, we can call the underscore underscore init underscore underscore method by using super parentheses period and then whatever method we want to call in here of the class we're extending. So we're calling init and we're passing width and height. And then you guys can also see that we're calling stats by using super parentheses dot stats. So when I call cube, which is the and it's the class, the cube class with the parameters 333, when I call dot stats on that, is going to call this stats method, which in itself is going to call the stats method of the extended class, which is square. So it's going to do super parentheses dot stats, call this stats method right here, is going to return this string, and then the main stats method inside the cube is going to return the string we got from the super, and then plus the depth of this class itself. That's why we get width 3, height 3, depth 3. All right, let's continue. So now we're going to get into conditions. Conditions would be super simple. An if statement in Python is written using the if keyword. Hello? Hello? Yeah, okay. Okay, okay, okay. All right, let's continue. So, okay, here, since the condition in this if block, num, which is 10, if 10 is greater than 5, that's true. So since it's true, it runs this if block, and then it's going to print number is greater than 5. Perfect. Now, Python has an else statement that is written using the else keyword. If the if condition does not return true, then the else block gets triggered. So here we have number is equal to 10. Is 10 greater than 20? False. So the if block does not get triggered, but the else does. And that's why it prints number is less than 20. Python is kind of cute. It is, it is, it is. I totally agree. Now there's also another statement, and that is the elif keyword. We need to check several conditions. You can place an elif between the if and else block. So for example, my number is equal to -2. Is -2 greater than or equal to 3? No. Is it equal 2? No. Is it equal 1? No. Is it equal 0? No. So it prints the else. Think of the elif as another if, but after the main one. So this is a good way of checking several conditions. Next one. Python was written by Hispanics using elif. That was good. Now, let's get into truthy and falsy values. Variables like a 0, an empty array, or an empty string have a falsy value. So if we were to do if 0, that is false. So the else statement here gets triggered and not the if. That's why we get it is a 0 instead of it is a number. Now an empty string is also a falsy number. So it does not get, so an empty string will return false instead of true, and that's why we hit the else the else block right here. Now the complete opposite of that is all the variables like a non-empty string or non-zero int return a truthy value. So anything other than a 0 will be true if you were to check if that number. So if 1 is true, if 257 is true, and that's why this if block gets hit. This also works with negative numbers. Now, this also works with non-empty strings. So since this string is not empty, it's going to return true, and the if block gets triggered. Yeah, Python does not have switch statements. So now let's get into loops. A for loop in Python is declared using the for keyword and is used to iterate over a sequence. So right here we have for number in the range of 5. We print that number and we get 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Since the for loop in Python iterates over a sequence, strings, arrays, and other data structures could be iterated. For example, if we were to use a for loop on a string, we're going to print out each and every character in that string itself. If we were to iterate over an array, we're going to print out each and every element in that array itself. So that's something pretty cool. Now the range function is commonly used in for loops to iterate over a range. So here we have for number in range of 1 to 6. So from start to end. And if we were to print out each and every number we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now let's go over the syntax of the range functions since it's commonly used. The range function syntax is start, stop, and then step. Something I do want you guys to note here is how the start is inclusive and the end is exclusive. So it starts at 1 and it prints the 1, but it doesn't print the last one. It's exclusive. It prints right before the last one. That's why we see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we can also do this with a step. So this step of 3 is going to print out the number incrementing by 3. So you get 1, 4, 7, 10, 13, 16, and 19. Each is a step of 3. Hey, Azar of the link, nice. The for loop can also iterate backwards by using the range function. So we're going to start at 7. We want to end at -1. And every time we increment, we want to add by a -1. So that -1 is basically dropping the 7 to 6, and then to 5, to 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. And something else, remember, since the second argument is exclusive, it never hits -1. It stops at 0. So that's how to iterate backwards. Now let's get into while loops. A while loop in Python is created using the while keyword, and will run the block of code inside the while. It will run the block of code inside the while condition while the while condition is true. That's pretty tricky. So here we can see that alive is equal to true. So while alive is equal to true, this will keep on running and running and running and running. So but it eventually stops because health is equal to 50, and every time it runs, we're subtracting 1 from health. And then once health is equal to 0, we make alive to false, and this while loop breaks. That's why we get all of this information right here. Health is at 50% when the health is at 50. And then once the health reaches 0, print this, and the while loop stops. An else statement can also be attached to a while loop, and it will run once the condition in the while loop is false. So let's say here, while starting is greater than 0. So while 5 is greater than 0, we're going to print starting, and then we're going to subtract 1. So we get 5, 4, 3, 2, and then 1. And then it breaks the while loop. And since the while loop broke, we go into the else statement. And that's why we get starting reach 0. So now let's get into the data structures. So first data structure I want to talk about is lists. A Python list can be created using square brackets right here and can contain different data types. For example, it could contain a string, an integer, an array, or a Boolean value. And so the first one, and then we were to print that, it accepts all of that, and it's no error at all. The Python list can also be used in for loops to iterate over each element. So for example, if we were to do 4 elements in the array, we're going to print out hello, then we're going to print out world. Right, we could also specifically index an element inside the array by indexing it. So here we have the 0th element, and that's because every array starts at 0. So we have the 0th element. If we were to print that out, we get hello. And then we index the first element, we get there. If we were to do the second one, we would get good. If we were to do the third one, we will get friend. Let's say we were to index it at 7, it will give us an error because there's not 7 elements in here. That's outside of the bounds, and that's why we'll get the error itself. Indexing also supports negative numbers to access elements at the end of the list. So if we were to index it using a -1, we're going to get the last one. In -2, we're going to get the second to last, which is the 6. That's why we have -1 and then 6. Python also has a list function that returns the object passed into the function as a list if the function is iterable. So here we have the string hello. We can iterate over that, so we can basically turn that string into an array, and that's why we get an array of characters inside of that string. That's why we get H, E, L, L, and O. Makes perfect sense. Extremely useful as well. Now, we can also combine what we know about for loops and indexing, and then we can index each element in an array using a for loop in the length function. What does the length function do? It basically gives you the length of that array, of that list. So for index in range of the length of array. So here's our array is hello, which just in case you guys forgot, this will be this, HELLO. If we were to the length of that array, we're going to get 5. So the range of 5 is going to start from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So if we were to print the element at index 0 is H. Makes sense? H right here. The element at index 1 is E, which is true. And then 2 is L, 3 is L, and then 4 is 0. And it doesn't reach 5 because like we talked about, range, it's exclusive. So it does not include that 5. It goes all the way up to right before the 5. So it finishes at 4. So perfect. That's a nice little way of combining what we learned, lists and for loops, which is great, and indexing as well. Now, Python lists can also be sliced to get a range of elements. And now, similar to the range function, list slicing is also inclusive and then exclusive. So we're going to start at 1, and we're going to finish at 2, but we're not going to include the 2. So we start at 1. Let's see, where is 1? This is 0, and then this right here is 1. So it's from 4, and then we're going to finish right before 2. Where's 2? 2 is a 6, but since we don't include it, we start and stop at the 4. So that's why when we print our answer, we only get 4. Let's say we start at 1, and then we finish at 3. Where's 1? 1 is right here, it's the 4. And then where's 3? 3 is the last one in the list, which is -1. But since we don't include the 3, we only include the 4 and 6. That's why when we print our answer, we get 4 and 6. So we're slicing by the index. Index 1 is 4, and we're not including the index 3. We stop right before it, so we stop at index 2. And that's why we get 4 and 6. Python lists can also include an append method that adds any element to the end of a list. So for example, if we were to use a for loop and go over a range of 8 and append each and every number in that range, we get an array of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Because every number we're going over, we're using the append method and adding to that list. And we go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now, opposite of append, we have pop. A pop method removes the last element in a list. So here our our list is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're going to iterate over the length of that array and pop each and every single one. That pop also returns, it removes it from the list, but it also returns the element we removed. That's why we were to print array.pop, we get 5 because that's the last one. But then when it iterates again, now the last one is 4. If we were to call pop, we get 4, and then we get 3, and then we get 2, and then we get 1. And then when we print the array itself, we get an empty array because we popped each and every element inside that array. List also supports the addition operator. So let's say we have 2 arrays, 1, 2, 3, and then 5, 6, and 7, and we add them together, we get one big array that includes each and every element in them together. Something I do want to point out is that arrays, you cannot multiply them or you cannot divide them because that will give you an error. Something I want to point out, and I want to make that clear. Now, a really important data structure is dictionaries. You guys might know dictionaries as an object or as a hash map in Java, but in Python, they're called dictionaries and they're extremely important. Stacks in C are shaky. Nice one. I agree. All right. So a Python dictionary is an unordered collection of items where each item has a key value pair. So this is how you create a dictionary right here, and curly braces, and then a key, and then what is that, colon? I think there's a colon. I'm not sure. Colon. Okay, yeah. Sweet. Thank you, Zach. All right, and then in colon and the value, and then if we were to print it, we'll get exactly that. Dictionary values can also be accessed similar to indexing a list, but instead of a number, the specific key is passed. So here we have 2 key value pairs. We have a string as the key, and then we have a number as the key. So to get that value of that key, we have to call the variable dictionary, then square braces, and then that key. So here we're going to call key, and this is going to return value. Why? Because that's the value of key. It might be a little bit confusing because I named it weird, but here, this other one is better. The key is 7, and the value is the string 7. So when we call the key of this dictionary with the square braces and then 7, we pass the key we want. We're going to get the value of that key, which is the string 7. That's why when we print it out, we get the string 7. Now let's do some practice over this. Let's go to where I have it. This is also going to be shared with you guys. It's going to be in the GitHub repo, and it's all going to be at the end. Okay, let's insert below. So let's create a dictionary right here. Let's call this dictionary B. Curly braces to create a dictionary. The key is going to be name, and the value is going to be Lazaro. So how are we going to access the value of name? Well, first we have to reference the dictionary. So we do that with D, and then we do the square braces. And inside the square braces, we want to call the key we want. So what key do we want here? Let me actually add another value. Right. So what value do we want? we want the value of name. So inside the square braces, we're going to pass name. And when we run this, we get Lazaro, and it works perfectly. Let's say we want the value of age. When we run it, we get 75. That's how we do it. Okay. So a key value could also be added to a dictionary by creating the key and then giving it a value. So here, as you can see, this dictionary does not have the key value pair of age and 28, but we add to it by referencing the key and then giving it a value. Here to this dictionary, we're going to add the key age, and the value of that key is going to be 28. So when we print D, we have it updated with a new pair, and when we access age, it actually gives us a value. It's going to be 28. Yeah. So since 75 is not a key, I'm gonna get into the next slide. Since 75 is not a key, it'll give me an error. It's a key error. Now let's see how we can combat this. What time is it? All right, I'm doing pretty good on time. So here, when accessing a key value pair that does not exist, Python will throw an error. It will give you a key error. Why? Because we're trying to access the pair, the key that school, but as you can see in this dictionary, school is never created, so it throws an error. How can we work around this? Well, there's actually a pretty nice method, and it's called the get method. The syntax of the get method is get, and then the key you want, and then default value. So here we're doing d.get school. Since school is not in a dictionary, is to return this default value, which is no school record. That's why when we print school, instead of getting that error, we now get no school record. Now, something else I would like to highlight as well. Let me do it right here. Let's say we have this exact same dictionary. And then school is equal to the dictionary. Let's call the method. So we do dot get. And what key do we want to access? We want to access school. We'll actually have it right here, but don't worry, let's just write it out. So we're not passing a default value here. We're just calling school. So when we print what we get from that key, we get none because we didn't pass a default value. But let's say we do pass the default value. There is no school. Now, since we're passing default value, instead of giving us none, it gives us the default value we passed. So you can either do it with or without. I usually personally do it with. Okay. Sweet. So let's carry on. Now, the keys and only the keys of a dictionary can be returned using the keys parentheses method on a dictionary. If we were to call keys the dictionary variable, which is D here in this case, dot keys, we're going to get each and every single key inside the dictionary. So here, as you guys can see, the key is name, age, and then career. So that's what it returns. When we call it keys, that's what it returns. But it looks pretty weird. This is pretty weird format. So if we want to turn this into a list, we call the list function, and then we get a beautiful list with all the keys. Now, if you want to get all the values, instead of calling dot keys, you call dot values. And here all the values are James 28 in topology. That's why when we call the dot values method, we get James 28 in topology. It's still ugly though, so we have to turn into a list using the list function to make it all pretty. Now, the items, keys, and values of a dictionary can also be returned using the items method on a dictionary. So if you want both keys and values, but not as a dictionary, if you want an array, you can just do the variable name of the dictionary dot items, and then if you turn that into a list, you get a list of tuples that has the key and value. Now, I'm not going to be able to go over tuples today, but I highly encourage you guys to learn it on yourself. So that's why if we were to iterate over the list of the items, we get the keys, and then we get the values. All right, and that was actually the last slide, guys. Now let me give you some motivational quotes, of course. That is, experience is a name that everyone gives to their mistakes. Python, it's obviously simple, but Python is also a pretty strong language. As you guys know, you could use it for machine learning and stuff like that. TensorFlow, PyTorch is extremely powerful, even though it's a little bit slow. But you guys might make mistakes. You guys might want to give up, but never ever give up. Just keep on pushing and then learn new things. You guys won't regret it. Now, some resources. I know Azar already linked it in the chat, but I'm gonna go ahead and link it as well. This is gonna be the slide. If you guys go to that slide and then go to slide 77, you get some other cool resources. You get the link to the repo. Yeah, and look at that documentation. Exactly. We have the documentation right here, which is highly encouraged, guys. It's pretty good documentation, easy to read, just like Python is, and it's a great resource. But if you want this repo itself, you guys can click on the link to the repo, and you guys can go to the DCFIU repository for this workshop. And you can see the actual code that I wrote. So instead of looking at the slides, DSC in the house, exactly. So instead of looking at the slides, you guys can all see it right here and how it works. And there's also some YouTube videos that I recommend, a couple of data structures that I think you guys should look at. And like I said, there's sets, there's tuples. These are things I didn't cover, but I highly recommend you guys to go over. And then with that, I would like to thank you guys for attending my first ever workshop. It's been a real great pleasure. You guys were awesome. You guys made really funny jokes that I enjoyed. And not only I would like to thank you guys, but the DSC FIU team would like to thank you as well. You know, we love the support. We love helping students out. And it's just great for us to do that. Something I do want to promo. Oh, look, yeah, you guys are so great. Thank you guys. And now let me show you what's next. DSC FIU also has another workshop from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It's Intro to Neural Networks with Python. So you guys can dive a little bit deeper into Python and see what's more about and all of that. Also, on September the 30th, we'll have DSC FIU's info session. So our first event of the semester. This will be great. I highly recommend you guys to check out DSC FIU. We're trying to build a tight-knit community of it will give great workshops. And then next semester, we have something awesome. Not AM, PM. Not AM, PM, 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 PM. You guys didn't see that. Don't worry. Wow, I can't believe I messed that up. Okay. But yeah, next semester, DSC FIU has something great. It's called the Solutions Challenge. You guys go form teams, solve a real world problem, and this will be great. Also, our Discord is here. And if you guys do want to sign up, super easy sign up application. You just use the QR code, take out your phone, go to the camera, and then scan it. And then you guys will be a member and join our Discord and our family. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I would like to thank you guys for everything. And if anyone has any questions, I'm going to be staying here for the next 7 minutes. What was the online IDE? It was Jupyter. So this right here, I was using Jupyter because I installed Anaconda, the navigator. Once you open Anaconda, you guys will see this screen right here. Just launch Jupyter, and then here, let me actually show you step by step. If I were to click launch, it's going to do some terminal stuff, and then it's going to take me right here. And I have my Jupyter notebook on my documents inside projects. I go to Jupyter, and then I open it. If you don't have that, you can just create it, and then it's going to load and have everything here. Can you send that GitHub link in the chat? Of course, of course. Copy this. We have a ton of cool workshops. Yes, we do. Coming up really soon, including Flutter, Web Dev, Firebase, and a bunch more. Yes, Azar, that's the lead right there. That's the president of DSC FIU, guys. And it was exactly what I'm talking about. It's going to be great. Once again, let me go back to the QR code, just in case you guys do want to sign up. Highly recommend. It's great. Can I get the invite? Yes. Let me show it right here. So that's gonna be the link itself. I already see that some people are joining. Thank you guys. Can I join if I am transferring to FIU next term? Yeah, you can join. You can sign up to be a member. You can join our virtual events. And then next semester, when the Solutions Challenge starts, you can join the team. Yeah, I for sure fully recommend learning Python as well. Something great, guys. Oh, the link expired. Oh no. Here, let me give you guys a brand new one. See, invite people, copy, go right here, and there we go. Where can we find this recording? That's actually a good question. One thing I do know is that we're going to upload this to a DSCFIU's YouTube channel, but Daniela, maybe you know better about this, of where they can find the recording. It'll be shared by UP. Perfect. UP YouTube as well. Yep. Okay, great, great. Any sort of class research opportunities or anything to do with data science and Python at FIU? Yes, for research opportunities, I do know that UPE has the Discover program, and they do some machine learning stuff and AI stuff with Python. One of the core team for DSC FIU is actually on that program, and it's great. They do great stuff, and they research heavily as well. So that's something I recommend you check out. Yes, I would love to have recordings for the Python neural networks. Yes, it'll be uploaded to the UPE channel, which Zachary put the link, and then the DSC FIU. If Azar, you can please link that. Currently, not totally sure where it's at, but you can link that. You guys can subscribe to both YouTube channels and then check out when the video comes. Looks like I'm not gonna make it to the Among Us game. How come? You're gonna go to the neural net? It's a good trade-off, man. Your career. It's a good investment. Thank you for thank you for everything, y'all. Thank you guys. How do we connect with you? Well, you can join the here. Let me link one more time. Join that Discord, guys. I'm on there 24/7. Like I said, I'm the vice president of DSCFIU, so I'm always there, always willing to talk to you guys. And if you want, you can directly message me. See you at the next one. See you, Allison. Take care. Oh, thank you for enjoying it. Thank you for sticking around. It was a pleasure being able to teach. I think we had over 100 for my first time. It was really great. Hopefully everyone understood it and are motivated to learn more. Nice to meet a fellow DSC. Yes, nice indeed. Take care, Ian. Thank you. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all the nice comments, guys. It means a lot to me. It was well done. Thank you, guys. Once again, thank you. All right, we got 2 more minutes. I'll answer any more questions. You guys, like I said, I have the QR code for DSCFIU, which is the club I'm the vice president for. We have awesome workshops coming up and great things for you guys. And the info session is on the September 30th at 7 p.m. So make sure you guys come to that. It'll be extremely fun. You guys will learn a lot and have a good time. We'll be really close knit family. Yep, and we also did a workshop yesterday with Google called Cloud Hero with big data and query. So definitely check out that video as well if you're interested. Are you going to do more in data science in the future? Um, Not me personally, but I know a really close friend, John and her miss. They are going to be doing this intro to neural networks, which is absolutely great. It's from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. I do recommend you guys to check that out. They're great teachers and they'll do a great presentation. Take my word for it. Thank you so much and see you at the next one. This was fantastic, Lazaro. Very well spoken and explained once again. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it and learned. Good job, Lazaro. See you in the next one. Take care, David. All right. Peace out, bro. Take care, Delver. I will also join. Thanks a lot. Of course, of course. Thank you for joining. Hopefully you guys can hear me because my headphones just beeped again and hopefully it didn't turn off. Thanks. Take care. Take care, Jonathan. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sticking to the end. It means a lot. All right, it is now 1. So the next workshop is going to be taking place, guys. Check it out. Go to the sessions. Take care. Stay safe. Stay safe as well. Take care, Liana. Awesome simplified workshop. Thank you. Thank you. Take care, guys. Have a good night. Happy hacking, guys.